What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Paddock, and today we are going to talk about the lick line approach to improvisation. Today we are going to dive back into the topic of improvisation. This is like late beginner, early intermediate improvisation. So if you don't already know how to improvise, I suggest you take a look at some of my other videos where I go into depth about how to get started. If you already know how to improvise, but you're still kind of getting started, or your lines, your improvisation lines don't sound that great, or they sound static, this is going to be the video for you. Today, I'm going to show you the lick line approach to improvisation, which is going to make your improv sound way more interesting. Before we dive into the video, I'd like to take a second to thank everybody for liking and sharing and following me on YouTube. I really appreciate it. I'm on the road to 20,000 subscribers, so if you are a steady viewer and you have not subscribed yet, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button. Okay, so let's talk about the lick line approach to improvisation. One of the biggest problems I have with my students when we start doing improvisation, like they figured out the blues scale, they're comfortable playing on a blues, they're comfortable playing on some songs with easier chords. The problem that always creeps up is their solos start to sound monotonous. They start to sound the same. And the reason for that is because they take the same approach on everything. So it's usually one of two approaches. So in today's video, we're going to combine the two approaches, and that's actually going to make everything sound a lot better. So the first approach is they just play lines. In other words, like they learn that the whatever scale fits the chord, so they just play scale type lines all over everything. So the improv starts to sound like this. Which is all correct, but it has no direction because you're just playing a bunch of lines. When I say lines, I'm talking about moving eighth notes. So you're just gonna have a bunch of eighth note lines, which are awesome if you use them in the right spot. But if that's what your whole entire improvisation is, it's not gonna sound good. It's just gonna sound like you're running through scales. The other approach that students take is only playing licks. To me, like licks are musical ideas, not necessarily lines, like where your eighth notes are running all over the place, but like a musical sentence, something like this. To me, that's a lick, as opposed to a line. You hear the difference between a lick and a line? Here again, here's a lick. Here's a line. So what I like to have my students do is do the lick line approach. In other words, you're going to play a lick, and then you're going to connect it with a line to the next lick. So you play a lick, a line, into a lick. To do that today, we're going to use the G Mixolydian scale. That's on the alto saxophone. If you're playing a tenor saxophone, that'd be C Mixolydian. If you are a C instrument, that would be B flat Mixolydian. So all Mixolydian means is a flat 7. So in the case of the alto saxophone, we'd be playing a G major scale with an F natural. An F natural because we're taking the regular 7th, which is an F sharp, and flattening it to an F natural. So that would be a G to G with an F natural in it. And that is your Mixolydian scale that goes with the chord G7, because the chord symbol 7, the suffix 7 in G7 means lower your 7th. All right, so that scale would sound like this. That is the scale that we are going to use. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that scale and play licks. Now, the way to create a lick is you want some repeated stuff and you want some rhythms that aren't just eighth notes. So if you play, even though I repeated some notes, it doesn't really sound like a lick. It doesn't sound like a sentence or a statement. It sounds like a bunch of notes next to each other. So a lick is going to have more long notes in there. There's going to be some syncopation in it. There's going to be some rests in there. But it's also going to have some repeated stuff. Take a listen. Here is a lick. That lick was just played with 3 notes, G, B, and F, which is your 1, your 3, and your flat 7. Which are great notes to get started with your lick improvisation, just because they make sense when you play them together. So you can come up with countless licks using those 3 notes. Now, obviously, you don't want to just play 1, 3, flat 7, but that's a really good place to start. But you can do that on any notes. This time I'm going to do F, E, and D, which is my flat 7, my 6, and my 5. And it doesn't just have to be 3 notes. Just anything that sounds like a musical sentence, not something that sounds like notes running on your saxophone. The next part is add a line. A line just means improvising using your scale. So it's going to be mostly 8th notes. It doesn't have to be all 8th notes. And of course you can jump around in your scale, but you just want that do-ba-do-ba-do-ba-do, that kind of 8th note flowy feel. It would sound like this. Notice I had some like longer notes in there. I had a couple quarter notes in there. I had some rest. So it doesn't have to be all 8th notes, but we just want those flowing lines. We want the notes to be looking like this if you're reading it on manuscript paper. So here is another line. Again, it can just be any improvisation using that scale. So when you combine the lick and the line, that's when everything starts to become way more interesting because you have these 2 different colors of improvisation. So I'll play a lick and then I'll make a movement and play a line, but you'll be able to hear it just by the way that by the difference in how they sound. So lick, line, here we go. You hear that? So we have the lick and then the line is the connector into the next lick. So you hear I'm playing a lick and then a line, into a lick and then a line. So that is a good way to get yourself out of that rut of only playing licks or only playing lines. Now, when you first start doing it, an easy way to do it is do 2 bars of each. So it's going to be really metered. It's not going to sound super musical, but it's going to really help you lock it in. So it would sound like this. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, So did you hear I had that lick? I went into the line, went to a lick, went into a line. So you can hear the difference between the 2. Now, obviously, if you do that in a solo, it's not going to sound that great, and it's going to sound very monotonous because you're doing 2 bars and 2 bars and 2 bars. So you want to separate it up more than that. But when you're first trying to figure out that lick line approach to improvising, that's a really good way to do it because it really separates it and it helps you figure out which one to play. The next step after that is to just switch it up. So everything is not just 2 bars. You might play 2 bars or 4 bars or 6 bars, 8 bars, whatever. One might be longer than the other. One might be shorter. It really doesn't matter as long as like you're coming up with really cool creative ideas. So it would sound like this. That's it. So we're doing the lick line approach. Now, because I'm calling it the lick line approach, that doesn't mean you can only play 1 lick and then go into a line. You can play 1 lick that leads into another lick and then connect it, have a connecting line that goes to the next lick. So you're not going to have 2 lines together because a line just kind of keeps moving. So you don't, if you have 2 lines together, the notes just keep going. But you can have 2 licks next to each other. So I had the 2 licks, then the next lick, or something like that. and then the line that went afterwards. So the whole idea is to switch up the way your phrasing sounds by playing licks and lines. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. If you now understand the lick-line approach to improvisation, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, leave some comments below with other topics that you would like me to cover. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate your support.